For millions of years, the sky belonged to them, and down below was us. But Ancivia had a question that changed everything. Why can't I fly? 50,000 years ago, no planes, no engines, no wings, just a caveman and a dream. Today, you're sitting in a metal tube 35,000 feet above the ground, eating peanuts, watching Netflix. Ancivia couldn't even imagine this. Or could he? Because the same obsession that drove Ancivia drove every single person who ever made humans fly. This is the story of humanity's oldest dream, and Ancivia is our guide. Welcome to Ancivia. To understand why humans dreamed of flying, we need to go back. Way back, birds have been flying for 150 million years. Humans, we've been watching them for about 3 million. For early hominids, trees were home. Height was safety. The sky was survival. And from up high, they could see everything. No predator could hide. No prey could escape. But eventually, you have to come down. And Ancivia hated that part. Every single morning, Ancivia watched them. The birds, the gliders of the ancient sky. Some soared without flapping. Some hovered in place. Some dive-bombed into water at full speed. Ancivia's brain was running calculations. It didn't even know it was running. The human brain 50,000 years ago was identical to yours. Same hardware, same processing power. He picked up a feather. Incredibly light, perfectly shaped. Engineered by 150 million years of evolution. A single feather has over 1 million tiny interlocking hooks. It's stronger than it looks, and lighter than you'd believe. He let it go, and watched it float, spin, drift, land gently. Something clicked. He started experimenting. Leaves, bark, animal skin. Which one stayed up longest? Flat leaves tumbled. But curved leaves, they glided. Ancivia didn't know the word aerodynamics, but he was discovering it. He climbed higher, threw them farther, and took mental notes. His tribe thought he was insane. Ancivia, come hunt. No, I'm doing science. What is science? Exactly. But Ancivia kept going. He was building a database, the world's first aeronautics research journal scratched on leather. Then one night, bats, a mammal, like him, flying. Ancivia held up his hand next to a dead bat's wing. The bone structure was almost identical. Almost. This was huge. Bats weren't birds. They were more like him, and they could fly. And then flying squirrels, gliding between trees using stretched skin flaps. Ancivia checked his own armpits. Sadly, not enough skin. But what if he could add more? Every evening, the birds flew home. And every evening, Ancivia stayed behind, on the ground, dreaming. But the dream was getting louder. He studied them through summer, through winter, through rain and storm. 3 years of data. He tried to explain it, drew diagrams in the mud. If we attach these here and run here and jump there, nobody understood. But one day, someone would. Ancivia's experiments were just beginning. Step 1, materials. Ancivia needed feathers, big ones. He built a frame from branches, lashed feathers to it with animal sinew. It looked ridiculous. It also looked kind of like a wing. He ran, fast, really fast. Nothing happened. The wing fell apart. Attempt 1 failed. Attempt 2, bigger wings. He jumped. Gravity said no. Attempt 2 also failed. But he got up. Because Ancivia was built different. He went back to basics, watched how birds actually launched. It wasn't about running. It was about the angle. Birds don't run and flap. They spread, lean, and let the wind do the work. Bernoulli's principle, air moves faster over a curved surface, creating lift. Ancivia didn't know the name, but he felt the truth. Attempt 3, curved wings. Lighter frame, looser feather attachment. He found the highest cliff, waited for the right wind. He jumped, and for 3 seconds, he glided. 3 seconds of pure impossible joy. And then, the ground. Then crash. But he was smiling, because it worked, sort of. The tribe had watched, and for the first time, they weren't laughing. Humanity's first aviation test pilot, 50,000 BC, no certification required. Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier in 1947. Ancivia broke the impossible barrier 50,000 years earlier. And like every great inventor, he immediately started on version 4. There were many more failures. Many, many more. Attempt 7, got stuck in a tree. Attempt 12, landed in a river. Attempt 15, a mammoth ate his wing. Don't ask. But he never stopped because the dream was too strong. And slowly, attempt by attempt, his designs got better. His final design looked remarkably close to the hang gliders humans would build 49,900 years later. He never achieved true flight in his lifetime, but he got closer than anyone before him, and he left behind something more powerful than a flying machine. He left behind the idea, but Ancivia's dream didn't just live in his experiments. It lived in his art. The oldest cave paintings of birds date back 40,000 years, found across 5 continents. They didn't paint what they feared. They painted what they worshipped. Lascaux, France, 17,000 years ago. Hundreds of animals painted, but the birds are given the most detail. Sulawesi, Indonesia, 45,500 years ago. Ancient humans painted wild pigs and buffalo, and above them all, birds. This knowledge was passed down, generation to generation. The bird was sacred. Shamans wore bird feathers to connect with the sky world. Flying was spiritual before it was scientific. In ancient burial sites worldwide, humans were buried with eagle feathers. Every ancient culture left behind objects shaped like flight. The sky wasn't just above them. It was beyond them. And that made it holy. Every civilization on Earth produced dreamers who wanted to fly. Independently, simultaneously. Why? Egypt. Ancient scholars studied birds obsessively for thousands of years. Greece. Philosophers spent centuries debating the mechanics of bird flight. The Greeks left behind the first written scientific observations about bird flight. Norse explorers followed birds across the ocean. Birds were their navigation technology. Mesoamerican civilizations built the most accurate bird migration maps in the ancient world. South Asian scholars were among the earliest to document bird flight and attempt building flying models. China. Ancient engineers built the world's first flying objects inspired by bird flight. Indigenous North American peoples were expert observers of bird flight, studying the largest flying birds on Earth. These cultures never met, never shared notes, but they all reached the same conclusion. Whoever could fly had mastered the greatest force in nature. Ancivia knew it first. This wasn't just religion, it was longing, expressed through story because they had no technology. Humans built winged gods because they couldn't build wings for themselves. Yet, thousands of bird figurines have been found at archaeological sites, more than any other animal. They made them to feel close to the sky, to hold the impossible in their hands. They named constellations after birds: Aquila, Cygnus, Corvus. The sky was a map of their dreams. And at night, they dreamed of flying. Scientists call it flight dreams. Humans experience them more than any other animal-related dream. So why did humans dream of flying? The answer is in our biology. The human brain tripled in size over 2 million years. But size alone isn't the key. The prefrontal cortex, the part that imagines things that don't exist yet, our superpower. Around 50,000 years ago, something changed. Scientists call it the cognitive revolution. Before, simple tools, basic survival. After, art, music, complex language, long-term planning. Ancivia's brain got an upgrade. Not in hardware, in software. Humans could now represent things symbolically. A rock wasn't just a rock. It was a weapon, a tool, a marker, a monument. They could visualize outcomes before attempting them, plan, predict, prototype. Counterfactual thinking, the ability to ask what if. No other animal does this naturally. A dog wants the bone it sees. Ancivia wanted something he'd never experienced. That's the difference. And with language, ideas could spread. Ancivia's dream didn't die with Ancivia. It became a story, a myth, a goal. Like fire, ideas jumped from group to group. The dream of flying traveled with humanity as it spread across the earth. Everywhere humans went, Asia, Europe, Africa, the Americas, the dream of flight went with them. Ancivia passed his obsession to the next generation, and they to theirs, and theirs to theirs. 50,000 years of inheritance. One dream passed hand to hand, generation to generation. Ancivia never flew, but every human who ever flew was continuing his work. And here's the remarkable thing. The dream accelerated human innovation. The desire for the impossible drove the possible. Scientists call this moonshot thinking, setting impossible goals that force revolutionary solutions. Ancivia's moonshot was flight. And 50,000 years later, we hit it. He'd be insufferably smug about it, honestly. As civilizations rose, the dream became more systematic, less spiritual, more engineering. Greek scholars dissected birds, studied their bones, their muscles, their hollow skeleton. Bird bones are hollow, but reinforced. Same volume, fraction of the weight. Nature's carbon fiber. Ancivia had noticed this too. Bird bones equals light. His bones equals heavy. Problem identified. China, 3rd century BC. The kite. Humanity's first flying object that actually worked. It couldn't carry a human, but it proved the principle. Shaped surfaces catch wind and generate lift. The kite traveled the Silk Road to the Middle East, then Europe. The dream was going global. Military commanders flew kites to scout enemy positions, flying for intelligence. Sound familiar? Drones do the same today. Different technology, identical purpose. Ancivia would approve. Now, the most important person you've never heard of. Abbas ibn Firnas, 9th century Andalusia. He spent 23 years studying bird flight, built models, tested materials. This was systematic aviation research. He built a glider from silk cloth and eagle feathers stretched over a wooden frame. In 875 AD, he announced a public flight demonstration. The crowd came expecting spectacle. He stood at the edge. The wind was right. He had done everything Ancivia had tried, but with 800 more years of knowledge. He jumped, and he flew. For several minutes, he glided over the crowd below, people who had never seen a human being airborne. Ancivia, watching from wherever ancient dreamers go, would have lost his mind. He hadn't designed a tail to control descent, injuries, but he survived. The landing was rough, and his first words after the crash? "I need a tail mechanism." The engineer never rests. Then came Leonardo, 1480s. He filled 500 pages with flying machine designs. He dissected birds, measured wing angles, calculated thrust ratios. In the 1480s, his aerial screw design, a helicopter, 400 years before helicopters existed. Different centuries, different tools, same obsession. He was 1,028 years ahead of the Wright Brothers. Let that sink in. His parachute design was tested in 2000. It worked perfectly, a 500-year-old blueprint that functioned flawlessly. Ancivia had noticed how leaves fell slowly when they were broad and flat. He'd understood the parachute principle too. 1800s, George Cayley built the first successful glider. He figured out lift, drag, and thrust as separate forces. His coachman became the first person to fly in a fixed-wing aircraft, then immediately quit his job. Ancivia's basic design wasn't wrong. It just needed 50,000 years of material science to catch up. The dream was getting closer. Each generation stood on the last one's shoulders. Dayton, Ohio, 1900. A bicycle repair shop, 2 brothers, 1 obsession. Orville and Wilbur Wright spent years watching birds before touching a single engine. They noticed pigeons warp their wingtip feathers to bank and turn. They called it wing warping. They built this exact mechanism into their aircraft. Bird biology translated into machine language. They built a wind tunnel in their shop, tested 200 different wing shapes. Kill, Devil Hills, North Carolina, December 17, 1903. Cold. Windy? Perfect. The Wright Flyer sat on its rail. 12 horsepower engine. 274 kilograms total. Ancivia's dream, mechanized. Orville at the controls. Wilbur steadying the wing. Both hearts pounding. 10:35 a.m. The Flyer lifted. 12 seconds. 37 meters. But off the ground. 50,000 years. Countless dreamers. Infinite failures. 12 seconds of success. This photograph changed human history. The impossible, captured on film. By the 4th flight that day, 59 seconds, 260 meters. They knew they'd done it. Ancivia would have done the same, just with more arm-waving and fewer witnesses. The news spread, and the world would never be the same. 10 years later, aircraft were flying 200 kilometers per hour. Ancivia's dream had become an arms race. And then came war. The sky became a battlefield. Ancivia would not have approved of this part. But also, commercial aviation, 1914. The first paying passenger took a flight, 23 minutes, $400 ticket. Ancivia would have loved flying. He would have hated the legroom situation. Today, 100,000 flights take off every single day. 4 million people fly daily. What Ancivia imagined with sticks and feathers now requires 2 pilots, 6 computers, and 15,000 hours of training. The Concorde flew at twice the speed of sound. London to New York, 3.5 hours. Ancivia spent 3 days walking 10 kilometers. Concorde did it in 3.5 hours. Same guy, different era. Modern fighter jets pull 9 Gs of force. That's 9 times your body weight pressing on you at 2,000 kilometers per hour. The SR-71 Blackbird flew so high you could see the curvature of the Earth and stars in daylight. Ancivia wanted to fly like a bird. We ended up flying like a comet. And then we left the atmosphere entirely. Humans in space. No wings needed, just enough speed to outrun gravity. Ancivia's dream taken to its absolute maximum. But we're not done. The next revolution in flight is already here. Companies like Joby, Lilium, and Archer are building electric air taxis, flying cars, for regular people. By 2030, you may be able to hail a flying taxi like you hail an Uber. Ancivia's cliff, replaced by your rooftop. Jetpacks. Real working jetpacks. The Dubai police already use them. Ancivia with a jetpack would be unstoppable. His tribe would finally take him seriously. Wingsuits. Humans flying like, you guessed it, flying squirrels. Ancivia's original inspiration. 60 years ago, copying flying squirrels seemed insane. Now it's an extreme sport. Drones now deliver packages, medical supplies, vaccines to remote areas. Flying is saving lives. Even Ancivia can see the practical applications here. And beyond Earth, Starship, designed to take humans to Mars, to make our species multiplanetary. Ancivia looked up at the sky and wanted to reach it. We looked up at other planets and wanted to reach those too. In 1988, MIT built a human-powered aircraft. A pilot flew 119 kilometers using only his legs. Ancivia's energy. Ancivia's dream. Modern machine. The future? Personal flight suits. Gravity Industries already makes them. 130 kilometers per hour. Wearable jet engines. Ancivia plus Iron Man suit equals the most dangerous caveman in history. Hypersonic flight. Mach 5. Sydney to London in 4 hours. The world becomes a neighborhood. By 2050, experts predict autonomous air highways above every major city. The sky as a road. Ancivia walked everywhere. His descendants will fly everywhere. Same species. 50,000 year gap. Scientists are testing thought-controlled drones. You think, turn left. It turns left. Ancivia imagined it. We're building the brain-to-sky interface. Space tourism is already real. Regular people flying to the edge of space. For fun. The dream Ancivia had in 50,000 BC is now available for purchase. About $450,000. Affordable soon. And the moon. Humans lived there briefly in 1969. We're going back to stay. Ancivia planted sticks in the ground to mark his territory. Buzz Aldrin planted a flag on the moon. Same instinct. From a cliff in prehistoric Africa to the surface of Mars, that is the trajectory of the dream. And it all started with a caveman who refused to accept that the sky was only for birds. Ancivia is back where we started. The same cliff, the same sky, the same eagle. For the first time in 50,000 years, it's almost a fair contest. Ancivia saw the world from the highest cliff he could find. Today, humans see it from 400 kilometers above. Every person who contributed to human flight was carrying Ancivia's torch. They just didn't know it. This didn't work, but it mattered. Every failure is a stepping stone. Every impossible dream is a blueprint. Somewhere right now, a child is watching a plane fly overhead, feeling that same feeling Ancivia felt. And that child will dream of something we haven't built yet, something that seems impossible today. And 50,000 years from now, someone will be telling their story. The impossible is just the possible that hasn't happened yet. Ancivia knew that before any of us did. So here's your question. What's your impossible dream? The one people laugh at? The one you can't stop thinking about? Tell us below, because Ancivia is listening. Thank you for watching Ancivia. If Ancivia's story gave you chills, hit subscribe, because every week we dig deeper into the stories that made us human. See you in the next one.